I thought I moved into a peaceful neighborhood, but something always felt off about the guy living next door. He never spoke, never smiled, and always had this cold stare that gave me chills. But I never expected the truth to be this horrifying. I only realized it when I found what he was hiding in his backyard. You know that feeling when you're totally sure about someone, like they've got their life together, and you secretly envy them? That's how I felt about my neighbor, Dr. Daniel Reeves. Bald, with unsettling blue eyes that could pierce right through you. The guy oozed charisma. He was smart, rich, and a freaking doctor. People adored him. Even the way he carried himself, always polite, always smiling, made it impossible to suspect anything sinister. But Daniel was more than just a doctor. He was a symbol of success in our small town. He donated to local charities, hosted neighborhood barbecues, and never hesitated to help anyone in need. His wife, LLA, was the perfect match for him. Beautiful, gracious, and kind. She had this shiny, expensive wedding ring that seemed to symbolize their perfect life. Their kids, Jamie and Emily, were polite and well-behaved. The kind of kids you'd use as examples when telling your own children to behave. Then, a few weeks ago, things took a weird turn. LLA and the kids vanished. Just gone like smoke in the wind. At first, everyone assumed they'd gone on a trip or had some family emergency. But days turned into weeks, and the town started to buzz with whispers. Had she left him? Was there trouble in paradise? No one could imagine Daniel doing anything wrong. Daniel played the grieving husband and father like a pro. He was all over the news, pleading for his family to come back. LLA, if you're out there, please, I love you, come home, he said. The whole town ate it up. But here's the thing. When the cameras weren't on him, he acted like nothing was wrong. I'd see him mowing the lawn, smiling at neighbors, or cracking jokes at the mailbox. It was off. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just one of those people who could hide pain well. Or maybe I was overthinking it. After all, not everyone wears their emotions on their sleeves. But as it turned out, my gut was right. There was something much darker beneath Daniel's perfect facade. It started with my house falling apart. One night, out of nowhere, the plumbing went haywire. I had just settled in to watch a movie when I heard this horrible gurgling noise coming from the pipes. Before I could investigate, water started gushing out of the kitchen sink, flooding the floor. I scrambled to shut off the main valve, but by then, the damage was done. The downstairs was soaked. I called an emergency plumber, but they told me it'd take days to fix everything. The water had damaged the floors, the walls, and even some of the electrical wiring. Meanwhile, I had nowhere to sleep. My bedroom upstairs was fine, but the smell of dampness and the constant noise from the drying fans made it impossible to stay there. That's when Daniel stepped in. We ran into each other as I was hauling a bag of clothes out to my car. "What's going on?" he asked. "Plumbing disaster," I said, gesturing to the chaos inside. "I'll have to find a hotel for a few days." "Nonsense," he said, flashing that disarming smile of his. "Stay with me. I've got plenty of space. Besides, I wouldn't want you sleeping in a soggy house." At first, I hesitated. The whole missing family thing still lingered in the back of my mind, but I was desperate. Daniel seemed so genuine, so eager to help. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose," I said. "It's no trouble at all," he assured me. "You'd be doing me a favor. The house feels too empty these days." That last comment gave me pause, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was just lonely. That night, I packed a bag and headed over to Daniel's house. Daniel's house was everything you'd expect from a successful doctor. High ceilings, sleek furniture, spotless floors. Every room looked like it had been staged for a magazine shoot. But there was something clinical about it too, like it was too perfect, too clean. It smelled faintly of cleaning supplies, the kind of scent that made you think someone had been scrubbing every inch of the place. "You're welcome to sleep in the attic," he said, leading me upstairs. "It's the only room I've got set up right now. I don't use it much, but it's cozy." The attic was surprisingly livable. It had a bed, a small desk, and even a mini fridge. The walls were lined with shelves of old books and boxes, giving it a homey, slightly cluttered feel. The door, though, was odd. It was one of those sliding types, but it had a heavy lock on it, the kind you'd expect to see on a vault, not an attic door. I ran my hand over it, feeling the cold metal. "Why does the door lock?" I asked, half joking. Daniel shrugged. "Came with the house. The previous owner was paranoid, I guess." He laughed, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. After showing me around, Daniel headed downstairs to make dinner. "I hope you're hungry," he called up the stairs. "I'm making a feast." I sat on the bed, taking in my surroundings. The room felt cozy, but there was an underlying sense of unease I couldn't shake. Maybe it was just the weirdness of staying in someone else's house, or maybe it was something more. Either way, I pushed the feeling aside and headed downstairs when Daniel called me for dinner. The smell of food hit me as I descended the stairs. Savory, rich, and utterly mouth-watering. When I walked into the dining room, I was blown away. The table was loaded with food. Steaming bowls of soup, platters of roasted meat, and an assortment of side dishes that looked like they belonged in a five-star restaurant. "Wow," I said, taking a seat. "You really didn't have to go all out." Daniel waved a hand dismissively. "Cooking helps me cope. Besides, it's nice to have company for dinner again." The food was phenomenal. The soup was silky and fragrant, with just the right balance of herbs and spices. The meat practically melted in my mouth, rich and tender, with a depth of flavor that left me savoring every bite. "This is incredible," I said between mouthfuls. "What kind of meat is this?" "Oh, just a mix of things," he said casually, taking a sip of wine. "Family recipes handed down for generations." I didn't think twice about it. The meal was too good to question. We chatted as we ate, our conversation drifting from work, to neighborhood gossip, to random stories about our lives. Daniel was a natural conversationalist, effortlessly engaging and charming. For a while, I forgot all about his missing family and the locked attic door. He had this way of making you feel at ease, like nothing else in the world mattered. "This is amazing," I said, raising my glass to him. "Thanks for sharing this with me. Really, I mean it." Daniel smiled, his blue eyes gleaming in the soft light. "The pleasure is all mine," he said warmly, lifting his glass in return. After dinner, Daniel insisted I relax while he cleaned up. He moved through the kitchen with the precision of a surgeon, scrubbing every dish until it gleamed. I thanked him again for letting me stay, and he waved it off. "No trouble at all," he said, flashing his practiced smile. The attic was waiting for me when I headed back upstairs. Something about the place still felt odd, though. It wasn't just the lock on the door. It was how unnaturally livable the attic was. The bed was freshly made, the mini fridge was stocked, and even the books on the shelves seemed arranged for maximum comfort. It felt less like an unused attic and more like a room someone had prepared specifically for me. As I walked toward the bed to settle in for the night, I tripped over a loose floorboard. My foot caught on the edge and I stumbled forward, nearly losing my balance. "Damn it," I muttered, steadying myself. Bending down, I ran my fingers over the uneven board. It shifted slightly under my touch, loose, but still secure enough that it wouldn't immediately stand out. Weird, I thought, but I shrugged it off. It was an old house, after all. Deciding to ignore it, I changed into pajamas and slid into bed. The ceiling above was slanted, giving the room a cozy, cabin-like vibe, but the silence was deafening. There wasn't even the faint hum of pipes or creaks of an old house settling. It was too quiet. As I lay there, I couldn't stop my thoughts from wandering. Why had Daniel been so insistent on helping me? Was it just kindness? Or was there something else? And what about his missing family? My mind churned with questions until sleep finally took me. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke with a start. The room was pitch black, the kind of darkness that made you feel like the walls were closing in. I reached for my phone to check the time. 3:12 a.m. That's when I heard it. A faint, rhythmic tapping coming from below. It was steady, almost methodical, like someone drumming their fingers on a table. I sat up, heart pounding, and strained to listen. The sound stopped abruptly. I told myself it was nothing. Old houses make weird noises, right? But as I lay back down, something didn't sit right. I tried to shake it off and eventually fell into a restless sleep. The next morning, the sun streaming through the small attic window felt like a relief. I chalked up the noise to my imagination and headed downstairs. Daniel was already up, sitting at the dining table with a cup of coffee and a crossword puzzle. He greeted me with his usual cheer. "Sleep well?" he asked, not looking up from his puzzle. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a smile. "The attic's great." He nodded, sipping his coffee. "Good. Let me know if you need anything." His politeness was almost unsettling in its consistency. I grabbed a quick breakfast and decided to spend the day out, needing some distance to clear my head. That night, after another pleasant but strange dinner with Daniel, I returned to the attic. I was exhausted from a day of trying to distract myself, but something about the attic kept gnawing at me. The floorboard I had tripped over the night before caught my eye again. I hesitated for a moment, knowing it wasn't right to invade Daniel's privacy. He had been so kind to let me stay here, and snooping felt like a betrayal. But curiosity got the better of me. I knelt down and pressed on the loose board. It lifted easily, revealing a hidden compartment underneath. Inside was a small, dusty box. My pulse quickened as I pulled it out and opened it. The box was filled with VHS tapes, each one labeled in neat handwriting. "My Beautiful Family." The title sent a chill down my spine. I stared at them for what felt like forever, before finally reaching for the old TV and VCR in the corner of the room. My hands trembled as I slid the first tape into the player and hit play. The screen flickered to life and static filled the room before the image appeared. It was a home video. Lila and the kids were sitting around the dining table, laughing and eating. The scene looked normal, almost idyllic. But then the camera panned to Daniel. He was holding the camera himself, his blue eyes staring directly into the lens. "My beautiful family," he said softly, almost reverently. The scene cut abruptly to something far darker. Lila was tied to a chair, her face streaked with tears. She was begging, her voice hoarse and raw. The camera was steady, and Daniel's voice was calm as he spoke to her, though I couldn't make out the words. Then he stepped into frame holding a knife. Without hesitation, he began slicing through her arm, ignoring her desperate screams. Blood spilled freely, staining the floor as he worked methodically. It was horrifyingly clinical, like a butcher at work. My stomach churned as I watched in frozen disbelief. Daniel paused to look at the camera, a sick smile on his face. Then, to my utter horror, he picked up a piece of the dismembered limb and took a deliberate bite. I couldn't take it anymore. I hit pause and stumbled back. I ran to the corner of the attic and vomited, the taste of dinner still fresh in my mouth. That's when I noticed something glinting in the mess. It was unmistakable, the ring, Lila's wedding ring. I had seen it dozens of times when she waved to me from across the street or fiddled with her hair while chatting with neighbors. Its unique design, a large, brilliant diamond surrounded by tiny sapphire accents, was unforgettable. There it was, sitting in the bile, shining mockingly under the attic's dim light. I froze. There was no mistake. This was her ring. And if this was her ring, then what had I just eaten? Couldn't breathe. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. Had I really eaten her? The thought was too much to bear. I wiped my mouth and stumbled back toward the TV, my hands shaking. My legs felt like jelly, and I clung to the edge of the bed to steady myself. I had to get out of there, but my thoughts were a tangled mess of horror and disbelief. Before I could do anything, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, deliberate. Each creak of the wood sent a jolt of panic through me. My heart pounded in my chest, so loud I was sure Daniel could hear it. "You okay up there?" Daniel's voice called out as though nothing were wrong. The same voice he had used over dinner, offering me seconds with a smile. I scrambled to turn off the TV, my hands fumbling with the buttons. I left the tapes scattered on the floor, the open box and its horrifying contents lying in plain sight. My brain screamed at me to put them back, to hide the evidence, but my body refused to cooperate. All I could do was lock the attic door and press my weight against it, trying to steady my breathing. "Yeah," I called out, my voice cracking under the strain. "Just tired." There was a pause, long enough to make me wonder if he was still there. Then, his footsteps retreated, each one echoing ominously as they descended the stairs. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. My hands shook violently as I reached for my phone. My fingers slipped over the screen before I managed to dial 911. "Please send someone," I whispered into the receiver, barely able to keep my voice steady. "My neighbor. He's done something terrible. I'm in his attic. Please, hurry." The operator's voice was calm and professional, asking me for details. I tried to explain, but the words came out in a torrent, jumbled and frantic. "There are tapes. He hurt his family. He's dangerous. I think he's trying to kill me." "Stay where you are," the operator said firmly. "Officers are on their way. Can you secure yourself?" I glanced at the flimsy lock on the attic door, my stomach sinking. "I'll try," I said, clutching the phone like a lifeline. Every second felt like an eternity as I waited, straining to hear any sound from below. My thoughts spiraled out of control. What if Daniel came back? What if he broke down the door before help arrived? And what if I never made it out of this house alive? Minutes felt like hours. The dim light of the attic cast eerie shadows across the walls as I sat in the dark, clutching my phone like a lifeline. My ears strained for any sound, every creak of the house magnified in the oppressive silence. Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps climbing the stairs. Each thud sent a jolt of terror through my body, freezing me in place. "You've been snooping?" Daniel's voice came, colder and sharper than I had ever heard it. The warmth that once disarmed me was gone, replaced by a chilling detachment. The door rattled violently as he tried to force it open, the entire frame trembling under his strength. I stumbled back, my breath coming in panicked gasps. My mind screamed at me to think, to act, but my body refused to move. Then, a gleaming knife blade pierced through the gap in the door, slashing wildly at the lock. The sound of the blade scraping against the metal sent a shiver down my spine. "Daniel, stop!" I yelled, my voice cracking with fear. The door gave way with a deafening crash, swinging open to reveal Daniel standing in the doorway. His blue eyes, once unsettlingly calm, now burned with a feral intensity. He stepped into the room slowly, the knife glinting in his hand. "So, you figured it out," he said, his tone eerily calm despite the rage flickering behind his gaze. "Doesn't matter now." Before I could respond, he lunged at me, the knife arcing toward my chest. I barely dodged, the blade slicing through the air where I had just been. My hand shot out, grabbing a heavy lamp from the desk. Without thinking, I swung it at him with all my strength. The base of the lamp connected with his shoulder, but it wasn't enough to stop him. He staggered back for only a moment before charging again. We grappled, his strength overwhelming. He forced me down onto the floor, the cold steel of the knife pressing dangerously close to my throat. My arm shook as I struggled to keep him at bay, every muscle in my body screaming in protest. His face hovered inches from mine, twisted into a grotesque mask of anger. "What was the food like?" he hissed through clenched teeth. "Did you enjoy it?" The words hit me like a punch to the gut, the realization of his depravity fueling my desperation. I twisted my body violently, using every ounce of strength I had left to throw him off balance. For a moment, the knife slipped from his grasp, clattering onto the floor between us. Both of us lunged for it at the same time, the fight for survival far from over. The sound of sirens filled the air, just as Daniel pinned me to the ground. His weight was crushing, and I could feel the cold steel of the knife pressing against my skin. My vision blurred with tears as I fought desperately to push him off, my strength fading fast. Then, the attic door burst open with a deafening crash. Police officers swarmed in, their voices sharp and commanding. "Drop the knife!" one of them shouted, their guns trained on Daniel. But Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he turned on them with the knife, slashing wildly. His movements were wild and erratic, as if fueled by a desperation beyond comprehension. He screamed, his voice filled with rage and madness. His blue eyes burned with a feral intensity that sent a chill through the room. The officers opened fire, and Daniel's body jolted violently before collapsing to the floor. Blood pooled around him, soaking into the wood. For a moment, the room was silent, except for my ragged breathing. I gasped for air, trembling as I pushed myself up from the floor. My entire body ached, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. One of the officers approached me cautiously. "You're safe now," he said, but I didn't feel safe. My eyes darted to Daniel's lifeless body, and that's when I saw it. A handgun tucked into his waistband. The officer followed my gaze and carefully removed the weapon, inspecting it. "He had a gun," the officer muttered, a note of disbelief in his voice. He looked at me. "He could have used it on you at any moment. Why didn't he?" The question struck me like a thunderclap. My legs gave out, and I slumped onto the bed, staring blankly at the blood-stained floor. Why hadn't he used the gun? He could have ended it quickly, but he chose the knife. My mind raced with horrifying possibilities. Did he want to prolong it? To savor the fear? The struggle? Did he want to do to me what he had done to his wife, piece by piece? My stomach churned at the thought, bile rising in my throat. What kind of sick freak was he? The realization hit me with a weight I could barely process. He hadn't just wanted to kill me. He wanted to break me. "Are you okay?" the officer asked. I shook my head, unable to speak. The horror of what could have happened, of what almost did, loomed over me like a dark cloud. The officers began securing the scene, but their words and movements blurred together in my mind. All I could see was Daniel's twisted smile and the glint of the knife as he asked me. The next few hours were a blur of flashing lights, paramedics, and police officers asking questions. They wrapped me in a blanket and led me downstairs. The house, that had once seemed so pristine, now felt like a crime scene, because that's exactly what it was. Daniel's body was carried out on a stretcher, a blood-soaked sheet covering him. Even in death, I couldn't shake the image of his piercing blue eyes, or the way his voice had dripped with malice in those final moments. The police were thorough, combing through every inch of the house. I sat on the curb outside, shivering despite the blanket. A detective approached me, her expression grim. "We found some disturbing things," she said. "Do you feel up to answering a few more questions?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure how much more I could handle. She led me to a patrol car where I sat and recounted everything. The tapes, the ring, the dinner, and Daniel's attack. Every word felt like a stone in my gut, heavy and impossible to move. The next day, the news was everywhere. Doctor turned killer. Shocking discovery in suburban home. Read one headline. Cannibal neighbor was another. My name was left out of the reports, thankfully. But the details of Daniel's crimes were plastered across every screen. What the police found in the house was far worse than I could have ever imagined. It began in the room that had belonged to Daniel's daughter. A room that once seemed innocent, filled with childhood memories. Hidden beneath the bed, and inside false panels in the walls were compartments. Their contents, grotesque and horrifying. Body parts, human remains. Some of them meticulously preserved, as though they were trophies. Others bore signs of decay, and still others had been partially consumed. The detectives described it clinically, but their faces betrayed the horror of what they had uncovered. Each discovery painted a clearer picture of Daniel's unimaginable depravity. The remains were confirmed to belong to his wife and children, his daughter's tiny hands, wrapped in cloth. I still can't bring myself to watch home videos or flip through old photo albums. I keep thinking I'll see his face there somehow, smiling in the background. Or worse, staring right at me. That house, his house, was eventually torn down. Neighbors didn't want to live next to what had become known as the kitchen of horrors. I don't blame them. I drive past the empty lot sometimes, and even then, I swear I can still feel the weight of what happened there pressing against my chest. Therapists say it'll fade. The nightmares, the panic, the guilt. But how do you forget something like that? How do you unsee a dinner plate and not wonder what it once held? Some smells still trigger me, especially slow-cooked meats. I avoid barbecues now, and if someone ever offers me food with a smile, I flinch. My phone still holds the last call I made to 911. I don't know why I haven't deleted it. Maybe it's proof I wasn't imagining things, that it really happened, that I got out. There are moments, quiet ones, when the world feels normal again, when I laugh, when I sleep through the night, but it always comes back. The memories, the knife, the ring, her ring, and that question, haunting and unanswered. If it was Lila's ring, then what had I just eaten?